Welcome, everyone, the Sports Writers Podcast. I'm Bill Newell with MSO News Sports. We have Phil Stacy, Executive Sports Editor, Salem News. Right below him, at least on my screen, is Nick Giannino, Sports Editor of the Gloucester Times, and Matt Williams, Assistant Sports Editor, Salem News. So we've got the A-team here with us here today to talk North Shore sports. We are talking on Monday. Is it Monday? Yeah, it's Monday, right?
Monday. Yep.
Monday afternoon. So, Phil, I think it's time to maybe share a highlight or two from this entire school year of sports, fall, winter. We've done a lot of spring, obviously, lately. So let's lean on the first two seasons, if you will, fall and winter sports. Phil, if you were to, and Nick and Matt, if you were to pull an item from the fall, what might you pull out?
I think, because we've been doing some looking back recently of, champions this year. We had a dozen, at least in our Salem News area, a dozen different teams won either state titles or, in the case of the Pingree schools, won a couple of knapsack titles. This is one I wasn't there for, but I think it was pretty memorable that Danvers boys cross country won the state title after finishing second a year ago by a single point. They kind of made it their mission to get back and complete the job this time, and they did so. I want to say off the top of my head, they had 4 guys in the top 12 runners to win Division II. So that was pretty memorable for them in the fall. 2 I was at on the same day, St. Patrick's Day, the state hockey finals. You had Marblehead complete that ridiculous run from going 0-6 to winning the state title. In the process, they knocked out the 3rd seed, the 2nd seed, and the 1st seed in back-to-back games. They were a heavy underdog against Nauset, but got an early goal from Noah Feingold and held on for that win. They won 1-0 shutout victory for the Headers, their second state title. And then later that night, you had St. John's Prep winning its second state title in 3 years. Controversial fashion with a goal supposedly after the light went on, but counted on the ice for Johnny Teague. So Prep wins again, 3-2 over Winchester. Those were 2 pretty exciting games in the winter, I would say.
Yeah. Matt, how about yourself? What do you pull for highlights from the fall or winter?
I think I look at it big picture for the whole school year. I got to look at Salem, right? I mean, 10 tournament games for Salem this year is a high number for them. Interestingly, it only came from 3 different teams, and no girls sports made the playoffs for Salem. But we talk about all kinds of strange, obscure records that we invent or come up with or whatever, but for Corey Grimes and Rocco Ryan to participate in 100% of their school state tournament games for a given season, I'm guessing that hasn't happened very often.
I'm wondering if a team has played, a school has played double-digit playoff games, Willie, and there have been participants in every one of those games before. That's maybe hard to look that up, but that's a great question.
I mean, it's got to be very rare because, again, like most of these schools, first of all, you have to have all your tournament teams just from one gender, right? That's a happenstance. That's not going to happen at a Hamilton Wenham or a Masco or any place like this. So that's kind of rare as it is. And then, to not have another team make it in a given season, like obviously if the boys soccer team makes it, that's impossible because these guys play football, right? So the stars really have to align.
So Matt, Matt, for our listeners, that's football, basketball, baseball for the guys that you were just mentioning for Salem.
Right.
Just to be clear for everybody, right? Yeah.
Correct. And I'm not sure if there was anybody else. I can't remember if Jordan O'Malley was like on the kind of deep in the rotation there for basketball or anything like that. There might have been some sophomore call-ups that played for all 3 teams, but obviously Grimes and Ryan were the big guns. But even more than that little interesting factoid, big picture for Corey Grimes to take Salem to Final Fours in 2 different sports, right? Football, the Super Bowl, the Final 2, Salem's first Super Bowl in 25 years. 24 years, because it was 2023, whatever it is, the math. And then to get them their first baseball Final Four, just truly remarkable. Every year when I tally up the state tournament win percentage totals, it's not often that Salem has that kind of success, and for them to get a couple of Final Fours in their back pocket, that's pretty remarkable. Those two trophies will go right in that Salem Pride room, and it'll be something for young kids in Salem to aspire to, for years and years to come. I mean, I remember when Corey and some of his friends were in Little League, and they surprised us and kind of made a run at District 16. I think they finished like either third or second that particular year, and they stayed with it and ended up doing really well, and so just hats off to Salem for making two Final Fours and going 7-3 across all sports in a state tournament. That's pretty good for them. I mean, it's good for anybody. I don't mean to say just for them, but hats off to the Witches.
Before I go to Nick, the football team, what a great story that was this year, and what exciting games they had as well.
Mhm.
Then you had basketball in the middle, and then of course baseball. Seemingly an unlikely story for this baseball team, but man, they didn't have a lot of that. I was over to practice. They didn't have a ton of kids on that roster, but they got it done, and was a lot of the same guys. So
And they've got
great.
the whole infield back next year
Yeah.
too. So I don't think that, Salem struck me, Bill, as a throwback team to the old North tournament where, you used to see teams like Tewksbury and sometimes Swampscott, go to these lower divisions with records that weren't so good. And you'd say, oh, watch out for that team. They're battle tested. They're going to be trouble. And that's what I felt Salem was in Division 4. Now I know the power rankings are supposed to kind of eliminate that, but that Salem reminded me of some of those old teams from, the late 90s, 2000s, mid 2010s that, would come from a big conference and then drop down a couple divisions and not be intimidated by the top seeds. And kudos to them that they were, a fun ball club to watch. And I think they're going to be back next year.
Yeah.
They were down to their last out in the second round.
Yep.
Against Monument Mountain, team from way out Western Mass. Bottom of the last inning, down. I don't want to. They went down to the last strike, but down to that last out, got a clutch hit, tie the game, then won it in extra innings, and then defeated number 1 Linfield, wasn't it, Willie?
Yeah, number one.
Yes, yes.
The team that they lost to 1-0 ended up winning the state title fairly easily. I mean, if you look at all the games that they played, Seekonk, I think they averaged 7-8 runs a game against everybody except Salem. So, I mean, that's how close they were to winning the whole thing. I mean, like there was a shot that I think it was Rocco hit down the left field line that was very nearly, a fair ball and a couple runs in, and assuming that Salem could have taken care of Seekonk's opponent the way that Seekonk did. I mean, that's how close they were to winning the state title. Was just a couple inches. Like it just needed a Yaz wave, I guess, to get it fair.
And that was a team.
Say, the one team that didn't make a Final Four for Salem, the boys basketball team, they had a nice run of their own. I mean, they had to go 2+ hours down to Old Rochester to play. I know it was only a second round game, but they battled that team tooth and nail. That team went on to the state finals, and the two leading scorers on that team were 2 freshmen, Elian Rodriguez and Jordan Maxon. Maxon exploded in the playoffs.
Yep.
And Rodriguez, splashed, as Nick likes to say, splashed a lot of threes himself. So hoping that they come back, but Salem will have a great upcoming winter if one or both of those guys is back. So the future's bright for Tommy Doyle's club if that's the case.
Then Nick, I'm going to bring you in here. Of course, you made the transition over during the winter sports season, right, from Salem News to Gloucester Times sports editor. So when you look at the school year from fall, winter, and spring, what kind of stands out to you? Again, kind of focusing back maybe to the fall or winter.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go with the Salem football team because I covered them a lot in the fall throughout their awesome season. Just a really fun team to watch. And I remember the most from them is the blowouts they had. They had some games where I think one game they put up like 50 points in the first half. I mean, they piled it on some teams, and again, just really entertaining. High scoring offense, solid defense, good skill players. So that was fun, and obviously we were all at Gillette for the Super Bowl with them. And even though they lost, it was still like an emotional game for all the guys and for the coaches. They hadn't been in that position in quite a while, so that was definitely a memorable run, I thought, in the fall. And then I did a lot of boys.
I got to interrupt you for a second. How about that game you were at over at Manning Field where they beat Classical on the last second?
Yeah,
that's right. I didn't see that. That was unbelievable. Probably one of the best football games I've covered.
You and I were both there that night.
Yeah,
right?
and who was it that toe tapped for the touchdown there in the corner of the end zone? Was it
Rocco Ryan, or was it that other kid?
No, was it Ortiz? I thought it was somebody that was kind of under the radar.
Or Ozuna, maybe?
What was that, Pujols?
Oh, I think it was Pujols. I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was Pujols, and I think Ozuna was right there with them. They both could have grabbed it, and Pujols kind of came over and snagged it. But yeah, that was like it was like whoever had the ball last was going to win because they just kept trading touchdowns. Again, talking about their high octane offense. Yeah, just really entertaining to cover. And then in the soccer scene, I had a great time covering Beverly this year. I think they had a really strong season. I believe they made it to the Elite Eight round in Division I, which is still pretty good. And they ended up running into eventual state champion Concord Carlisle, and they hung tough with that team, a really, really good team. Put up a goal against Concord Carlisle, and I think Concord Carlisle only allowed one or two goals throughout the entire postseason. So that was a fun team to watch. They had some foreign exchange students. One of them, Gustavo Majoli, I think was his name. So kind of interesting seeing the different styles of play you get over in Europe compared to here. Just a fun team to watch, and Edgar De Leon does a great job with the Beverly soccer program. So they were another fun one in the fall. We had some good golf teams too. Always like to get out on the golf course. Did St. John's Prep? They won the golf title this year, right? They ended up bringing it home.
No,
I don't think so. They weren't on our list. We didn't hear from them, so.
Yeah, maybe they didn't. Maybe they ended up losing in the state championship. But anyway, some really good golf this fall as well. And then, like you said, Bill, I made the transition into over to the Cape Ann as a Gloucester sports editor in January. So I had covered a little bit of basketball up to that point, but the season was really just kicking into high gear, and I had the luxury of jumping right into two great seasons for Rockport. One of their best basketball seasons in recent memory. They won a playoff game, gave another team a tough game on the road, a high seed there, Drury, I think it was. So they were really entertaining as well. And that gym, it's a small gym, and it was just always packed with fans, little kids, getting autographs from the players after the game and stuff. That really brought the Rockport community together. I thought that was a special group of boys for the boys basketball team there. And then Manchester Essex was incredible. Just the one loss all season. Made it all the way to the Elite Eight round, lost by a point in the Division IV Elite Eight to was that Millbury, I believe. Millbury came down to the last shot. Their best player, Cade First, who I thought was one of the best players in the entire state this year, had a shot rim out at the buzzer, and then that's how their season ended. But great run for them. So I was lucky to come in at a good time where two teams from the Cape Ann area were just terrific, had terrific basketball seasons.
And
so I mentioned too, just not to interrupt you, but in the fall, Ipswich volleyball won its third straight state title. They were undefeated. I think they only lost 6 sets all season. 2 of them were in the final. They were down 2-1 to Bellingham, I want to say, and came back and won that championship. And then several of the girls on that team played in on the girls lacrosse team that made the state final for the second straight year this year. So really nice season for the Ipswich girls. And of course, the head volleyball coach, Stacy Lawrence, has moved on. She's moved out of state down to Texas. She's going to teach and coach down there. So it'll be a new look for the Tigers as they go for a 4-peat this coming fall.
Wanted to add to what Nick was saying. I really enjoyed watching that Manchester Essex team a couple of times play. And one of their games was, of course, that Newburyport game, the
Yeah.
league, the rivalry kind of game. Two top teams in the league. A lot of really like both of those two teams. And then the other one I want to call out, probably should call out a couple, but we already mentioned Salem boys, but I need to mention the Peabody boys basketball team. And I thought I saw both their matchups, I guess, with Marblehead, and Marblehead put it on again at I think they did a nice little tournament run themselves again this year, as they've done in the past. But anyways, they're a very formidable team this year as well. But that Peabody team, obviously a great season for Coach Broughton over there. And, they really came along at a fantastic year. So
Would they have?
unfortunately they're in D1, for the playoffs, but.
Well, I think Willie, pointed that out in the PC, the Willies he writes every year, that yearly column looking at the, just how each team fared in the tournament, how many playoff teams for each school and whatnot. But it really kind of puts into perspective. And Willie, you wrote it, so you could say it. But for 3 years in a row now, we've had St. John's Prep, which is at the very top level of the state, and then schools like Hamilton and Ipswich have great success in this tournament. Smaller schools, Hamilton and Ipswich. Schools like Peabody and Beverly have really struggled. Or Essex Tech, you could say, Willie was in there too. I think you mentioned had a difficult time. I don't think this is just like a blip in the rotation. This is kind of like how this tournament is set up. If you're in one of the higher brackets, but you have very low enrollment, it's going to be really difficult to succeed, it appears like. Is that what your research is showing?
Beverly, sure. I mean, PBD, I think, has been really much more middle of the pack, largely because of girls hockey and football, which Beverly could certainly fix in short order. So that's been something to watch. I think softball, obviously, for PBD as well. Beverly's, but I think strictly speaking, where we got here with basketball, boys and girls, those being the largest sports in the state in terms of the number of teams that participate and in terms of the gap between sort of the haves and the have-nots. I think if we look at the basketball programs, for both schools, really realistically at this stage, they're Division II programs, right? I mean, that's just kind of crazy. Boys hockey, same thing, very similar sort of issues with numbers with both programs there. So you really do want to be a big fish in a little pond with these tournaments. I mean, I think if you look at the average seed, which is something else that I targeted with these awards, I look at the average seed, right, to see if it predicts success. I think if you look at Danvers had a pretty high average seed because most of their sports moved down to Division III this year, right? Now they didn't go to they did go to one Final Four with the football team, but they didn't go to any Final Fours with field hockey.
And that was Division V in football, right?
Correct. Yeah. So and they did have some success. So I think Salem, to go back to that well, right? They moved to Division V for football,
6
for baseball, and I think they were moved down to 3 for basketball. So now all of a sudden you're having success, right? I mean, I think if you put Beverly and Peabody in Division II, now you're talking about, state championship contenders in a lot of sports, and they're both in Division II for football, because there are more football situations there. So I think, especially for the boys sports and for the boys sports that are very popular, like basketball, it is going to be very difficult for them to compete as long as they're in Division II. And I think we've seen that with Marblehead as well. A lot of Marblehead's boys sports are in Division II, and it's like, they've had a little bit more success than Beverly, but they're not going to Final Fours, they're not going to state finals. I mean, I look at Marblehead's baseball team, are they that much bigger than Salem and Danvers that they're a division up? Because I look at that as a team that could potentially win Division III. So yeah, I mean, you really want to be on the big side of your division. If you're on that line, right, you're better off in Division II, the lower quote unquote division. I mean, this isn't the 1990s where Division 1 really matters. Like, it doesn't. There are no bad teams out there. The state champions of Division 3 and Division 2 are not anybody to scoff at, right? I mean, nobody's taking away the trophy, or you don't get a bronze trophy for winning Division 3. It's gold, just like the D1 trophy, right? I mean, so it is seemingly to me very, very difficult for the bigger public schools in this area to really make a dent in this thing. And part of it is the diversity of the Northeastern Conference too. I mean, that schedule where you're playing Winthrop and Saugus, I mean, that's not, if you're Peabody and Beverly, that's not preparing you to go toe to toe with North Andover and Lawrence and Catholic Memorial and St. John's Prep. Whereas the other side of that coin is if you're Salem and you've already seen Marblehead, Masco, and Peabody, you feel pretty well prepared to go into Linfield, right? So that's sort of the flip side of that coin.
Well, what's interesting about that, Willie, as you were talking, it made me think, like, we're not that far removed from Beverly being what, Nick, a top 8 or 9 team in Division 1. Now, granted, they had a generational player in Ryder Frost, similar to what you said, Willie, with Marblehead, where a year ago they make the boys lacrosse Division 2 Final Four with a generational player in Connor Cronin. So there are exceptions to that rule, but it seems like I'm going to use this phrase again. It seems like you need a generational player and a lot of other good supporting players around that player to do that.
Well, and even so, I would say, with another Hall of Fame player, if not generational, and Duncan Moreland, Beverly won Division 2 North in basketball.
Yeah.
So they were in D2. Ryder could have won the title. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the Brunson Scooney state titles was in Division 2. Is that right?
I think they both were.
And does anybody care? Like, does anybody not them? I mean, I don't know who won Division 1 that year, but I'll take my chances with Rick and Scooney against whoever it was.
Yeah, absolutely right.
When you do think about boys basketball in Division 1, for Beverly and Peabody are both in D1, right? So, but you get a feeling that they don't belong there at all. You know what I mean? That they could compete. Take the last 2 teams, the Beverly team from a year ago, let's say, not this past one, but the one previously, or a couple previous teams, very much could win a D2 title for sure. D1, pretty tough, obviously, as they found out. But and Peabody, very good team, but they're not going to cut it in D1 with some of these great, fantastic D1 teams out there.
And like Willie said, I mean, there's more basketball teams in the state than I think any other sport.
Yeah.
There has to be 250 boys basketball teams, if not more, I'm guessing.
At least. Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Easily.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
And I think we talked about that a lot in the power rankings too. Even on the girls' side, I mean, Peabody had a great girls' season again. Beverly had a tremendous girls' basketball season under Seth Stanchill, 15-5. All kinds of help from the freshmen. Julia Stevenson comes in and immediate playmaker and starter. And, Beverly and Peabody end up playing each other in a play-in game. I think they had between them, it was 33 wins in the regular season, I want to say, 32, 33 wins.
Sounds
and
right.
They're playing in a play-in game? Like, that's crazy.
But Phil, you mentioned it earlier. You got teams like schools like Winthrop and Saugus, and albeit they have some good teams for the divisions that they can have some good teams in the divisions that they are in. Example, Saugus, both boys and girls basketball have been very competitive, but they're not. It's not a D1 school, probably not a D2 school either. Winthrop as well. But you find teams like Beverly, Peabody, the D1 schools, always playing down during their regular season schedule.
Yeah, I mean,
the smaller divisions.
Under this format, the conference is going to be hampered by the fact that it is so, you go from Division 2 down to, in football, Division 6.
Yeah.
You have 5 different divisions in one
or even
conference.
7, right? Is Winthrop in 7 now?
I couldn't tell you. Maybe
it might be, but either way, I mean, it's.
And this isn't a 20
I'm not
conference.
sure about that. I'm not 100% sure of that. Yeah.
It's a big diversity, though. It is. It's a huge gap. And it's interesting. It is.
And I can't tell you, I'm sure the MVC or the Middlesex has different divisions, but I don't think they have 5 different divisions in a 10-team league.
Yeah.
Winthrop,
And I
Winthrop,
do think, part of it is that the southern, the old South, I think is better than the North in a lot of things. And so that's not helping either,
Are you talking like the Hinghams and the Duxburys and the
Yeah, the
Barnstables?
Patriot League,
Yeah.
some of those DCL schools down there, the Hockomock. I mean,
Yeah, the Hawk, yeah.
used to be that you wouldn't see those teams until the state semifinal, and now you start dispersing them throughout the whole tournament. And the power ranking certainly seems to favor those teams. Not that they don't deserve it, but I
Yeah,
think
would
that's part of why.
the Beverly
Yeah,
boys basketball team that reached the state semifinal in 2020, would they have gone that far under this playoff format?
right.
Yeah, I was just looking
great
just
question.
for picks at the 2023 team or 2022 team with Ryder. That team was unbelievable. And if they were in Division 2, they probably would have rolled to a Final Four. Instead, they're in Division 1. They run into Worcester North in the Sweet 16, who they just couldn't compete with. They didn't have the depth or the
Right.
height. And that team rolled to a state championship that year. So, yeah, you'd like to think they would have won some more games if they were down in. They definitely would have won some more games if they were down in division. And I'm sure Karakutis loves playing the best over there, and I don't think he's going to be the one to complain about that. But it doesn't seem right that a school like that is in Division 1.
I mean, even baseball. You look at Marblehead went 15-5, didn't get a home game. Masco went 14-6, didn't get a home game. Like, I feel like that's pretty good. And Marblehead's not loading its non-league schedule with cupcakes here. I mean, they're playing decent teams. Like you go 15-5. That sounds pretty decent to me. I don't.
And I know you can't pick and choose. There might be a GBL team that goes 18-2, and they say, "Geez, we won 90% of our games. Why don't we get a home game?" It's like, well, the level of competition is not great. I think that's kind of understood. While I don't think the Northeastern Conference is the Catholic Conference, I also don't think it's poor either.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
It's in the middle. It's a good public school league. It's not fantastic. It's not wretched. It's a good public school league. So, to use those 2 points, Willie, if Marblehead wins 75% of its games and Masco wins 70% of its games, I mean, somewhere in there should be a home game. That seems
right.
But the formula is what it is, and I can't say it's not working. It does seem to be working.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, Phil. Like we're not saying the NEC's that good, but we didn't think it was that bad either.
Right.
Yeah, I will agree that with the tournament format, that a lot of the majority of the high seeds are making the Final Four. It's not crazy to see 1 through 4 in the Final Four, or at least top 8 seeds.
And that's what makes it great to see, like a Salem, which was what, Willie, the 23rd seed, 22nd seed in baseball.
24, yeah.
Yeah, 10 and 10 season.
Or Marblehead boys hockey, which was a 6th seed, which again, okay, isn't that low, but you don't expect a 6th seed to go to the final.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I mean, if you have a 6th seed going to the final, that's not the worst thing in the world. And you expect teams when you have all this division disparity, you're going to have errors, I think, in any system. No one can come up with it, figure this out. I mean, who would have, if they had done it without a numerical system, figured that Salem would be the number one in the top 4 in baseball this year, in their division? Mm-hmm. Probably not a lot of people would have thought that. Maybe top 10, top 15 team, maybe higher seeded than they actually drew. What you said, 24, I think, right? But a number 4 team probably wouldn't have thought that. But that's what happens. So I
know, Willie, we didn't do this, but like statewide, was there a double-digit team that won a state title? A double-digit team going into the tournament in terms of their power ranking that won a state title?
I don't know that won it all. There were a couple in the finals, but I don't know that actually won the last game there. It's pretty rare. It is pretty rare.
I'm guessing that in the years to come here, that there's been a lot of shifting in the divisions. You mentioned Danvers moving, Phil, I think it was, from year to year. You have these variations on schools, on the demographics of the schools. can impact divisions. But I mean, I think our case in point by looking at Peabody and Beverly and D1, just say, for example, in the major sports, you know, that's got to be something that I think they've got to look at somehow or other, figure this thing out. But
I mean, they're two
I
for
mean-
track and two for football. So, I mean, you tell me, why is basketball different?
right,
I
really,
guess
I
just
mean,
because there's more teams, so the lines move around a little bit, you know.
but you know, still, you should be placed, even if, do they do it, Matt, that there's as many teams in D1 as there are in D2 approximately, and 3 and 4?
Approximately, yeah. So the lines are,
Approximately, yeah.
that's why the lines are a little bit different for every sport. And, you know,
Yeah.
obviously, like for girls hockey, there's, you know, only 60 something teams. So, you know, Peabody in Division One is fine for that because there's not, you know, there's not that many teams. So
Maybe use that like English soccer regulation system. You know, if you've been at the top of, say, Division Two for multiple years in a row, you get bumped up to Division One, and somebody else gets dropped down to Division Two, kind of thing.
Yeah, they used to do
Yeah.
some stuff like that. They really shy away from it now because they're afraid of, you know, they want it to be very formulaic and, you know, be able to explain it with math if it's challenged. But I think there's some sense to that. I mean, you know, geez, look at like Hamilton Wenham tennis. Like, you know, is there any doubt that they could have won the state title in Division Three or Two? Like, I mean, with the team they have, you know, I don't think they'd be worried about moving up too much.
I usually watch the clock like a hawk here, but we're down to 2 minutes and less, if you will. The only thing I'm thinking is that they had the Super 8 hockey and baseball tournaments or whatever they called it. I mean, maybe Division One is just too big. Maybe that's the one division that they got to shrink down a little bit, make
Yeah.
it smaller. And you know how else can you do it? I don't have an answer, but it
I think
seems
the
to
only
me
way
that
we go back to a Super 8 would be honestly to have it in every sport, because it would have to be equitable. You know, male
I'm
and
not
female.
calling for the Super 8. I'm just calling for maybe I don't know where the numbers are. I'm not, but Matt would be far better at that than I am. But you know, how many teams in D1, Matt? What?
Probably. I mean, in basketball, it's probably 70 or 80, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So
Take it down to
um,
45 or 50. I mean, I'm just saying,
yeah.
I don't know where that would lead you, but that's all I'm saying. But
Interesting. Hey, people out there, if you're listening, go to the Aganis games. You know, they're good takes.
Yeah.
Have fun.
all right. So, gentlemen, on that note, it's been great talking with you guys again this week. And
You
hope
too,
you
Bill.
guys have a
Thank you.
great summer. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
You too.
Take care. There they are. Phil Stacy, Nick Giannino, Matt Williams, and we will talk again soon.